everyone. From today we'll be starting with the subject economics. Before even starting, we'll understand why this subject is important, particularly in view of prelims and mains. Also, how much marks it will be able to add into our account and what is the importance of learning this subject. So in this series, we are going to cover both prelims portion as well as mains portion, along with complete focus on PYQs. I will say why it is important and what is the marks distribution as well. Okay. So first question is, why to understand the subject economics? So UPSC CSE Prelims emphasize more on economic subject as well. Why is it so? Why? Because there are certain points. Understanding governance and policy implementation requires the knowledge of economics. Why? Because economic literacy is crucial for governance. Economic concepts like taxation, public expenditure, monetary policy, inflation control are essential for policy making. To make any policy, we'll be thinking on these factors, right? We'll be increasing tax or decreasing tax, or we'll be planning for public expenditure and how the bank interest rate should increase or decrease. These things and all, from where will you learn? From the point of view of economics. For an aspiring IAS officer, it is vital to grasp how government policies affect the economy and development as well as welfare. So economy relates to development in return to welfare. So that is where the importance of economics lies in. So to do policy implementation and governance, you need to know basics of economics, right? So if you see UPSC expectation in this sector, candidates should demonstrate the ability to understand and analyze government policies, fiscal policies and financial reforms. We should be able to understand and analyze them. So to do this, we should have a knowledge of economics. I mentioned some of the points here. So secondly, if you see, it is a foundation for decision making. Sound economic knowledge helps bureaucrats make informed decision. You don't need to completely depend on certain person. Based on his recommendation, you don't need to make any policy implementation. We should be having that economic knowledge where we can have an informed decision making ability related to budgeting, resource allocation, development planning. Okay. Understanding macroeconomic indicators such as like GDP, inflation, unemployment helps in shaping policies that addresses the economic challenges like poverty, inequality and growth. See, we are bureaucrats. We are going to be a bureaucrats, right? So we will be trying to eradicate, elevate poverty, inequality, and we want to foster the growth. How will you do that? If you know how to handle the economics, how to frame the policies. So for that, you should be understanding macroeconomics like GDP, inflation and unemployment things. These are indicators, macroeconomic indicators. With that understanding, you can have a foundation for decision making than completely depending on someone else's suggestion. So UPSC expects candidates should have an ability to evaluate economic crisis and propose viable solution for a public administration. We should be able to understand what is the issue, economic issue, and we should be able to give a viable solution, right? For that also, we have to understand economics, particularly macroeconomic indicators. So initially we saw why it is important in policy making. We'll be understanding what is monetary policy, inflation, etc. So similarly, it is a foundation for decision making to alleviate poverty, inequality and growth. Okay. And it is also very much relevant to current affairs. Economic issues always dominate news and have a significant impact on both domestic and international affairs. So mostly we talk in terms of money or monetary values, so which is related to economics. For example, discussions on inflation, recession, global trade dispute and economic reforms are constant news articles, right? To understand that as well, economic subject is very much crucial. So from UPSC Prelims point of view, it emphasizes on current affairs and economic development often shape these events such as budget allocation, international trade organization. Why we want this trade organization? Again, economics. We'll be reading about international organizations here only. And economic recovery plans. We have already seen 5-year plans and all. Then we are also planning for different policies like Actis policy, all these things. From where will we understand all these things? From the subject called economics. That's why it is important. Candidate must be up to date with recent economic policies and demonstrate the ability to relate them with foundational economic principle. That is what is a UPSC expects. You should be knowing the basics of economy and you should build on top of it based on current events. That is what is the expectation of UPSC. So again, if you see, it is a link to development and social welfare. Okay, so we know certain things like Manrega, PDS, PM Kisan and all. These are economic policies only because money is playing role here for a social welfare schemes. So for which scheme how much to spend? Why that scheme? All these questions can be answered only when you understand basics of economics. Okay. Key issues such as poverty, unemployment, inequality are fundamentally economic problems that require administrative attention. To understand that, you should be knowing basics of economics, right? So even UPSC expects from candidates that candidates should show awareness of how economic policies affect development goals and the welfare of a citizen, especially marginalized communities. See, these are the key words or key issues that we should be addressing as a bureaucrat. To understand all those things and make policies or implement them, we should be having basic knowledge of economics. So if you take other things, it is relevant to global and national economic system as well. So we know the term globalization. The increasing interdependence of economies mean that administrators must have a strong understanding of international trade, capital flows and how global economic changes. So all these things we should be knowing like oil price fluctuations or trade wars and what is the impact of that on India's economy. Domestically, administrators must manage economic challenges like fiscal deficit, public debt and sectoral growth. So, without economic knowledge, how will you be able to understand how international trade happens? How will you be able to understand the capital flow? How will you understand the economic changes globally like oil fluctuations, trade wars, etc. So, you should be able to understand globally, and we know globalization is making us a global interdependence of economies, right? That should not impact negatively on India's economy. And accordingly we should be making fiscal policies and also should be managing public debt, etc., right? So even UPSC expects candidates are expected to understand how India's economy interacts with the global system and how international economic trend influence national policy making. Okay, so lastly we have two other things why we need this. See, first if you know why, then you will be able to do how. Right. So this is the thing. If you see sixth one, public service delivery and reforms. Economic reforms such as liberalization, privatization and globalization, that is LPG reform, financial inclusion programs, banking reforms are essential for efficient public service delivery. So to have a efficient public service delivery, we should have these economic reforms like LPG, financial inclusion, etc., right? So to that also you should be understanding the economics. Okay, candidates need to have a working knowledge of these reforms. So you should be having working knowledge of it and effectively contribute to governance and policy execution. That is one more expectation. So also for analytical thinking and problem solving. what actually happens is economics develops analytical skills that are crucial for solving real world governance problems. For instance, understanding the trade offs between inflation control and growth, or managing subsidies and fiscal discipline. So, these are part of analytical skills. As an IAS officer often faces complex situations where economic reasoning is essential to design practical solution. So economic reasoning is very important. Why? Because you can't simply plan without having enough resources, isn't it? To understand analytically think, you have to understand the subject economics. So what UPSC expects? The ability to think critically about economic challenges and provide well-rounded solutions is tested through analytical questions. So there are different kind of questions asked in the paper. From this we understood. So why we want this subject? We want the subject because for a proper policy implementation, decision making, even for current affairs understanding, and to link for social welfare and development, also for global and national economic system and public service delivery, along with analytical thinking and problem solving, we have to understand the subject called economics. So this is one criteria. It is not only for UPSC, but even in the life you have to understand how this macroeconomic and microeconomics works to make or for a proper allocation of resources for different aspects of the life. So economics is such important topic to be learnt. Okay, if I consider UPSC point of view, particularly if I consider based on marks, so in prelims you will be able to get around 12 to 15 questions. So each question carries 2 marks. If you consider a good luck and you are getting around 15 questions, you will be able to score around 30 marks in prelims. So it is 30% of a paper is from economics. So if you are able to answer those, minimum to minimum 10 to 15 questions are sure. If it is 10 questions, you will be able to score 20 marks. If it is 15 questions, then you will be able to score 30 marks. So 10 to 15% of paper. Okay. So that's how it is very crucial. Even in mains, economic contributes around 100 to 120 marks. 100 to 120, with one subject you are able to get 100 to 120 as part of GS3 paper. And if you are going with even the optional paper, then you will be able to secure 500 marks, 250 marks for each paper, because there will be 2 papers for optional, right? So this is the weightage of economics subject. So okay, but we thought we'll also solve PYQs and also mock test for economic subject. Why is it needed? Why to solve PYQs? We can directly complete the subject and then have a look into direct questions, right? But why to solve PYQs? We should know the importance of it first. So I'll explain through it. To understand exam pattern, you have to solve PYQs. PYQs will provide a clear idea of exam pattern, the type of questions asked, and how questions are framed in both prelims and mains. To understand that pattern, you have to solve PYQs, so that you can structure your preparation accordingly. You will be knowing where to stop. See, it is simple to start a subject, but we don't know where exactly to stop. How much content is needed, we can't decide if you are not having a knowledge of PYQs. So to understand the pattern and to aspire for whatever it is needed for the exam, you have to go through PYQs. For example, in prelims you can identify the topics like economics are consistently asked and how much weightage is given in economic subject. These things you can understand only from going through PYQs. Also, mock test will simulate the actual exam environment, helping you to get used to the pattern of your questions and time management, which is very important. Along with that, to get familiarity with syllabus, you have to have a look into PYQs, which will help you identify most important areas of the syllabus. For example, in economics, topics like inflation, government schemes and fiscal policies are frequently asked. If you check any of the paper, any year's paper, you will be able to get at least 1 or 2 questions on these topics. If you analyze those PYQs only, you will be able to get all these things. Okay. So to assessment of a current affairs. So we know, I said you have to focus on current affairs also, but to what extent? Many questions in UPSC exam are linked to current affairs. PYQs reveal how UPSC frames current affairs based questions in relation to the static portion. So that you will understand from PYQs. For example, a current event like union budget could lead to questions about fiscal policy. So this current affair should be linked with a static portion of fiscal policy and government expenditure welfare schemes. So that you will be able to answer right in the exam hall. Also to identify the trend, spotting the trend, and so that you will be increasing the weightage of conceptual and application based questions clarity in the economics. Okay. Then for time management and accuracy also, you should be going through the PYQs. So that is one of the key element here. And then also you will get boosted, your confidence will get to boost, because you will be able to solve PYQs. Once you are able to solve them, you will be having that confidence that you will be solving in even the exam hall, right? So for that confidence also, you should be solving PYQs. And in case of mains, it will improve your answer writing. If you are keep on practicing for PYQs, you will be able to understand what are the key terms that has to be used in exam hall for a similar kind of question. With that conclusion, you will be able to answer very well in the exam hall. Finally, for a self-assessment and progress tracking, you should use mock test along with PYQs. So this is a goal to clear UPSC Prelims and Mains, particularly in the sense of economics or economic subject. Okay. So yeah, in conclusion, if I say to get familiarity with the pattern and important areas, you have to go through PYQs. Even for enhancing time management and accuracy, for confidence building, developing answer writing skills for mains, and monitoring your progress regularly, you should take help of PYQs on mock test. Okay. So first we will focus on PYQs along with the syllabus, and once we are done with all the modules, we will take some mock test and solve. Okay. This is what is the agenda for economic subject. And now I will display what are the different modules under economics that we need to focus based on PYQ analysis. Okay. So now I will discuss the syllabus. Later from next session, I will be discussing chapter wise, even the PYQs from prelims as well as mains along with the concepts. Okay. So I have divided the subject into 6 parts. The first part is evolution of Indian economy. Remember the heading name. Okay, why? Because I will be frequently using it. You should be having a conceptual clarity first and also understanding of syllabus thoroughly. So evolution of Indian economy, under that we will be seeing about GDP, GNP, NNP, NDP. Concepts of national income, how they are measured, like production, income and expenditure methods, and their relevance in analyzing economic health. This is what we will be focusing in the first part, that is about GDP, GNP, NNP, NDP. Okay. Next, second part is about inclusive growth. We will see what is the definition, what do you mean by inclusive growth and why it is important. What are the government policies that are aimed at achieving growth that benefits all sectors of the society. That is what we will understand under inclusive growth. Next one, we will also understand before what were the planning we had. We had 5-year plans, right? And Niti Aayog. Historical overview of India's planning era, key achievements and failures. We should understand both failures and achievements. And then transition to Niti Aayog. Before it was Planning Commission, now it is Niti Aayog. Why that transition? and its role in present day policy formulation. That is what we are going to focus. Then we will understand about demographics, population trends, demographic dividend, challenges related to aging population and unemployment is what we will deal here. Finally, under first module, we will be reading about poverty and unemployment in depth. We will understand different types like absolute, relative poverty, disguised unemployment, etc. We will understand what are the causes and the effectiveness of a government schemes for elevation. For example, Manrega, PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, etc. Okay, these are the subparts of first module, that is evolution of Indian economy. First thing, we should be understanding about national income, GDP, GNP, all those things. Second thing, you should be understanding about what is inclusive growth. Under GDP, GNP only we'll understand what is inclusive growth and all. Later we'll go with 5-year planning, from Planning Commission to Niti Aayog, how did we transit. Okay, then we'll understand about demographics and related poverty and unemployment. This is under evolution of Indian economy. In second chapter, we'll be focusing on monetary and fiscal policy. Okay, so we'll understand what is monetary policy, role of RBI in managing money supply, and the different tools it is using like repo rate, reverse repo rate, CRR, SLR, and its impact on inflation, investment and growth. Okay, then we'll also understand about fiscal policy, where we'll be understanding about government's revenue, expenditure management, taxation and budgetary allocation. So we're understanding revenue, how much money is getting inside the government pocket and how much money is going out of the pocket, and how much we are taxing, what are different kind of taxes we have. All these things we'll discuss under fiscal policy. Then we'll understand in depth about RBI and banking. So we'll understand structure and function of RBI, its role in controlling inflation, and regulation of banks. How will it regulate the banks, like public sector banks, private, cooperative banks, etc. And impact of reforms like insolvency and bankruptcy court. All these things we'll understand. Even Surface Act, all those things. Then we'll understand about inflation. What are the types like cost push, demand pull, and we'll understand causes, effects, how inflation is managed through monetary and fiscal policy interventions. All these things we'll understand. So the second chapter is about monetary and fiscal policy, in depth about monetary policy and fiscal policy, RBI and banking, and finally inflation in the second chapter. So evolution of Indian economy, first chapter. Second chapter, monetary policy and fiscal policy. Third chapter we'll study about external sector. We are done with the inside India, right? Now we'll see external, outside India. So that is about balance of payment, the components like current account, capital account, and the factors affecting BOP, and also challenges India faces in balancing its BOP. Also we'll go through foreign exchange management, how foreign exchange reserves are managed. We have forex reserve, right? How those are managed, role of RBI in that, and impact of exchange rate fluctuations on economy. So how it will fluctuate and what is the impact, that also we'll understand. About international organization will be the third part. We'll be understanding different international organizations like IMF, World Bank, WTO, UNCTAD, in global economic governance and their impact in India's policies. Example, IMF's role during 1991 reform. Right? All these things we will understand in the third chapter. And the fourth chapter we will read in depth about financial market. So when you say about financial market, we talk mostly about two markets, right? Money market and capital market. So money market will understand different instruments like treasury bills, commercial papers, certificate of deposit, and their role in short-term financing. In capital market, we have debt market and share market. In debt market, we'll understand about government bonds, corporate bonds, and their role in long-term financing. In share market, we'll understand stock exchanges, SEBI also, initial public offering, role of SEBI in regulating this equity market. All these things we'll understand under financial market. Fifth chapter will be focusing on sectors of economy. What are the sectors? Agriculture. Role of agriculture in India's GDP. In depth about agriculture we already read. Now again we will be dealing with this. Issues like land reforms, minimum support price, cropping pattern, subsidies, APMC reforms, etc. will be understanding. In case of industries, we will be understanding what is the industrial policy we have, growth trends, contribution of MSMEs, government initiatives like Make in India, production linked incentives scheme, etc. Then also service sector will understand the significance of services like IT, tourism, financial services in India's economic growth, and also challenges faced and future prospects we will understand for service sector as well. Even we have fourth sector, that is social sector. We will be understanding about health, education, social welfare programs and their role in human capital development. We want human capital. We already have human resource. We have to convert them into human capital. So how are we going to do that? And schemes like Ayushman Bharat, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyana, etc. Okay. Finally, we will get into economic survey and budget. We will understand what is economic survey, key themes, analysis of past year's economic performance and policy recommendations. Also about union budget, key features, focus on government spending, fiscal deficit targets, new schemes and policies, and tax reforms recently happened, that is about GST, direct and indirect taxes. So these are all the 6 chapters that we are going to focus. So we will repeat. First chapter is on evolution of Indian economy. Second chapter, so monetary and fiscal policy. Monetary and fiscal policy. Third chapter, external sector. Fourth chapter, financial market. Fifth chapter is about sectors of economy. And the final 6th chapter is about budget, survey and budget. If you are able to complete these chapters thoroughly, you will be able to score around 30 marks in prelims and around 150 marks in mains. That's the importance of economic subject. We have seen why this subject and how to get clarity of the subject and what to be studied. We know all WH questions now. What, why and how. Okay. This is the session for today. From tomorrow we will be starting up with the first chapter of economics.